Okay, good morning for all participants. Maybe you can turn on your camera and then we will start with this event. Thank you, Dr. Azlan.
Welcome, Christine.
Yes.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. I'm sorry, I always replay my email.
Previously, in the previous session I had with Binus University, I communicated with Dr. Maria.
So okay, Dr. Maria Susan.
We exchanged messages through WhatsApp, so it was much
faster. I'm sorry because I'm communication with email.
No, it's okay. It's okay. No problem. It's okay.
Okay. Okay, now we will start with this event. Okay. So good morning for our participant. My name is Kristen Margi. It's precious chance for me to be your master of ceremony on this very special occasion on this webinar with topic how to write a high quality paper. So welcome Dr. Azlan and all of participants at Bina Nusantara University and also the lecturers from Bina Nusantara University. So to start this event, I would like to invite Dr. Azlan as keynote speaker for today. Dr. Azlan is Senior Lecturer Computer Science Department at SKM UITN Cabang Melaka, and then he has strong interest and skill in research methodology. He has written many papers and has a very high index. So today he will present about how to write a high quality paper. Now, Dr. Azlan, time is yours.
All right. Thank you, Miss Christine. Good morning, selamat pagi, assalamualaikum to all the lecturers, to the students as well as participants. Welcome to the our webinar for the day. Right? It's actually I'm very honored to be invited for this to take part in this event today. Right? By Bina Nusantara University. Previously, I had done this. And as I mentioned earlier, it was with Dr. Maria and Miss Sandra, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, let me just share with you my screen. Can all of you see my screen?
Yes. I can see your screen.
Right. Okay. To tell you the truth, I'm not quite familiar with Zoom nowadays because I've been using other platforms, multiple platforms. I used to be very how shall I say this? To be not to say very well versed, but I had a fair share using Zoom last time, but then since we have, I mean, the university has opted to use MS Teams and WebEx, so we have shifted to using that platforms, right? But to this date, I cannot say that I'm well versed with the two platforms just now. I'm finding my footsteps. All right. Thank you very much for attending this webinar for the day. All right. Just to share with you how I normally conduct my session. It's not going to be very formal. Don't worry for the students. Okay, it's not going to be very formal. Maybe from time to time, if you have any pertinent questions to the topic or to the information that I am going to share with you, you can pop the question or you can ask me immediately or directly. Okay, if you do not want to wait for towards the end of the session, it's okay. All right, what I'm sharing here with you today is actually on how to write a scientific paper, whether it's going to be a high quality scientific paper or a mid-range quality scientific paper, that depends very much on the first and foremost the focus or the content of your paper itself. All right, if it has to be, or if it's regarding the current trend, the current issues, the more complex issues, like for example, when we talk about data mining, okay, the big data, the visualization. So depending on the nature of your paper, it can be deemed or considered as highly scientific or mid-range or mid-quality scientific paper. All right. So what I'm sharing with you today is on how to write a scientific paper, a general one at that, which means to say that I truly believe everyone, not only the lecturers or academicians or educators, but students can do the same as well in writing up a scientific paper. All right, because until today, I've seen quite a number of students who were able to produce highly regarded papers or highly scientific papers. All right, meaning that when you guide them towards writing, they will be able to furnish a good quality paper. So everyone can do that. All right. And then on a second note, we do not only set writing scientific papers only to academicians and lecturers or educators or academicians, but actually everybody can write a scientific paper. All right. When we talk about everybody here, means I believe everyone has something to share, to add to the body of knowledge, to the corpus of knowledge, right? So if you don't start now, when, right? So based on that, let's just start and dive into how to write a scientific paper. So this is the research topics in computer science, I believe, at Bina Nusantara University. Okay, the table of contents for this session is on a little bit on elements of publishing, so that you may have some ideas on what to look into when writing up your paper. Okay, the do's and don'ts, okay, the pitfalls, the components of a paper. In order for you to write a scientific paper or a paper largely or generally, okay, you need to truly understand the structure as well as the components of the paper. Why I said so? Because this will help you and ease you in writing up and coming up with the paper, right, or an article. Okay. And then we shall look into a little bit about ethics or the ethical factors concerning papers, as well as the most important issue, or I can safely say this, the biggest sin in academia, which is plagiarism. Okay, inshallah, if we have the time, we'll try to look into that. All right. In today's research world, right, and when it comes to being an educator, being an academician, being a lecturer, being a teacher, okay, it's either publish or perish. Okay, I believe in the context of a lecturer, you are expected to publish papers, okay, to share your knowledge, to keep up to date with the current trends within your domain, right? Or you might not be able to keep abreast with the knowledge, with the ever-expanding knowledge, what more in technology. So what seems to be the main thing 6 or 8 years back may no longer be around in today's setting. Okay, it has been changed with something else. Anything to do with technology is vastly and rapidly changing, right? So we need to share, we need to constantly spread the information regarding these advances or these advancements in technology. So publishing is the chief currency in the universe, the main source of validation of one's research, and often the key indicator of academic success. Actually, it's part of the indicator. There are other indicators for academic success. So, however, promotion and tenure committees value peer-reviewed publications above all. That is regrettably even above clinical performance or community service to a certain extent. All right. So my point here is actually in sharing the knowledge with the interested parties, other educators, other teachers, and other academia. All right, writing a research paper can be a daunting task. I mean, to students, to lecturers, to newcomers, all right? It can be a daunting task, even to the seasoned writers or seasoned authors, okay? When they are trying to write in a different focus, different direction, different topic. So it's going to be a challenging task for them as well. What more when it involves eureka or groundbreaking research, or the I normally tell my students the light bulb environment, or the light bulb research. All right. So unless the paper is correctly written, the publication will be delayed or never published. But before we can get to the publication, okay, before we can even get to the peer review or being accepted to be reviewed, we need to ensure that our paper has substance and properly written, right? So the goal is actually to provide an overview of how the goal of this session is to provide an overview of how to write a well-structured scientific research paper for publication. Okay. All right, this is then the regular research life cycle: search and discover, we develop idea, we design, study, we acquire materials, we collect data, we store data, we analyze the data, we interpret the findings, we write report, and we publish report. So I need to highlight something on collecting data, right? In order for you to ensure that your research is valid, is ethical, is proper, you have to ensure that the data collection methods is appropriate, together in line with the evaluation or the testing that you have conducted, all right? And to a certain extent, I mean, personally speaking, if you have collected the data like a year ago, you can still write papers on that, as long as there is a new perspective or there is a new information that you can share with the public, okay, or with the community. All right, let's take a look at the elements of publishing. There are the ethical issues and concerns, the style and language within the paper, the structure of the paper, and the components of the paper. These are the main concerns or the main features or characteristics which are related to your scientific research paper. All right, let us just touch on some of the ethical issues that you need to be aware of. The first one is the disclosure of conflict of interest. To a certain extent, or to some rather, they don't find this a big issue. Why? Because let's say if they are pulling their own resources, if they are coming up with their own finance, then there shouldn't be much conflict of interest. Unless you are involved with some agencies which provide you with the budget, the university that allows you to have some research fundings, all right? So you need to declare if there would be any conflict of interest. What more when it involves certain levels of evaluation by the communities within the university, or when you apply for the public funding. So normally when we apply for public funding, if I may provide Malaysia as an example, so various agencies in Malaysia, including the ministries, they also provide research fundings. So in order to select which research that gets the funding, there will be evaluation committees to do that. And these evaluation committees comprise of experts and lecturers and professors from the various universities in Malaysia. So in that sense, we somehow or other need to write out or need to prepare our disclosure of conflict of interest, just in the case that it could be one of the professors who sits in the evaluation committee is also involved in our research. Okay, this is just one of the many examples. And then in terms of image manipulation and fabrication of data, so these are a big no in research, right? We should not violate the research ethics through the manipulation of images, fabrication, or even falsification of data. And then we need to acknowledge the funding sources. Where do we get the funding from? Okay, and then we need to look into the online submission and whether we are required to provide supplemental information in terms of sharing our data sets, as well as videos, as well as our information regarding the respondents, okay, which were involved in our research. Okay. All right. Another elements of publishing is on style and language. No complex language is needed in writing up a scientific paper. Okay, so we don't have to worry on that. Why I say that? Because normally editors and reviewers or the publishers, they truly understand that they get or they receive papers from all over the world, whereby most parts of the world, English language is not the main instruction or the main language, right? So no complex language is needed. However, poorly written manuscripts get rejected. Thus, our session for today on how to look into the proper way or to have the proper understanding in order for us to write properly and accurately and correctly for our scientific papers. So if English is not your first language, find a native English speaker if possible for content and language review of the paper before submitting it. So the standard, not say the standard practice, but what we or what I do normally in our university is I consult my colleague from the language center, okay, to have them to review the papers in terms of the style and language. All right, even though they may not be experts regarding the focus of the paper. For example, they are not technology savvy. However, they will be looking into the language and the style. Okay, the grammars, the proper use of words or vocabularies. Okay, so regardless of primary language, we can find a colleague or editor to review the content and language of the paper. And to a certain extent, if you can get to know any of the professors or the leading experts or seasoned researcher on your area that you are researching on, you can even send an email to them, okay, in an initial email, asking them or telling them that you are very familiar with their work, you are interested in their work, and somehow you are also doing a work similar to the domain that the professor or the seasoned researcher or the expert has been doing so far. So maybe you can ask or request for the experts to review your paper. And later on, you can also ask the reviewer, I mean now he or she becomes a reviewer of your paper, all right? Maybe you can also ask whether that expert is interested to become a part of your, as part of your co-authors, right? You can even do that. This strategy is adopted by many writers all over the world. All right. Other authors write the paper and then adapt it according to the style of a journal they subsequently choose. Yes, we can do that as well, okay? Meaning that you select a proper journal, all right? And then you look through the instructions, you look through into the information on how to write an article that specifically suits that proper journal or that specific journal, all right? You can do that as well. It is also a practice for some authors to write their paper with a specific journal in mind. Once you have selected, you can do that. Right. The objective is actually to write a research paper or your report, okay, to detail your findings and conclusions as clearly as and concisely or correctly as possible, to be shared with other interested parties all around the world. All right, let's take a look at the structure of a paper. There is nothing new or there is nothing different with the structure of a research paper or an article like that, right? Mostly they are the same. We call this structure as IMRAD, IMRAD, right? So specific writing follows a very rigid structure. A paper can be read at several levels. Some people will just refer to the title and see whether it is relevant or related to their study or not, right? Some may read only the title and abstract, so you need to prepare the appropriate title that reflects the overall of your research, as well as the abstract containing specifically required information within your abstract. Even though I may share with you, sometimes a lot of other researchers, they do not share the pertinent points in their abstract as well, right? Even though it's more advisable for you to provide all the necessary information in the abstract. I will deal with that later. All right, some may read the results and conclusion and check and evaluate or gauge or even measure whether the paper is relevant to their study, is relevant or is related to what they are working on. Some will read the paper, meaning the whole paper, for a deeper understanding. Okay, so when we talk about the structure of research paper just now, be it a scientific paper, be it a general reporting paper, be it a systematic literature review paper, be it a quantitative or qualitative paper, the structure more or less remain the same. Okay, the IMRAD model just now. So it starts with the introduction, general, starts with a broader topic. It provides a general background for the reader, and it narrows down to the thesis statement. The thesis statement is normally the last line in the introduction part. Okay, and then comes the methods, the second letter in IMRAD model, the methods. This is specific. Why? Because it is detailing on the specific details, information, and evidence or arguments which you have used in your paper. So the methods is the one that you use in order to conduct the overall research of the paper, as well as the results. So this is also specific. Why? Because it states the results or the findings which is directly related and relevant to your study or to your research and not anybody else. All right. And then we have the last part is the D. All right. The A there is for N actually. IMRAD, A for N. So the last part is the discussion. So it provides interpretation. Based on the results, you need to further elaborate on what actually the user needs to understand relating or regarding the result. Okay. So it gets broader. It explains the significance for the discipline, for the society or community interested in your work, as well as for the world at large. Okay, as well as for the giving recommendations as well in the discussion area or part. And then comes the references, right? So this is the IMRAD model, or IMRAD. Okay, to jump or to into the parts or components of a paper, like I mentioned just now, the title, it must clearly describe the content. It should be short and informative. So depending on the journal that you want to submit your paper to or your research paper to, they will normally detail that they need like no more than 13 words for the title. So you need to follow through. You need to follow suit. You need to abide with the instructions. Some other journals, they don't really dictate how many words should be in the title, but more or less, it normally accounts for 13 words or less. All right, so whatever title that you want to come up with to reflect your study, you have to ensure that it should be within 13 words. And then the authors. So this is to ensure recognition for the writers of the paper or the people involved in writing up the letter. Woman people, yes. Okay. All right. So when we talk about authors, there are also some serious concerns about authors. We don't include ghost authors. Ghost authors referring to people who are doing the writing for you, doing the work for you. So we don't do that. Okay. Another one is gift author, gift writer or gift author. So gift author is actually like you have a very good friend at work. You have a very good friend in your class, in your working group, or in your discussion group. So only two are involved in writing the letters, but because the third person is a good friend of yours and you put his or her name in it as a gift to that third person. This is also not recommended. Okay, only the people who are truly involved, who are able to show or indicate that they have contributed to the fulfillment or to the furnishing the research paper, only these people and their names should be included. And then we have abstract. So abstract describes what was done. As I mentioned earlier, in abstracts, there are 5 things that we need to include. Okay, the background or the introduction, the aim of the research or the focus, the method, the results or the findings, as well as the conclusion. Okay, these are the 5 components or 5 parts that should be in an abstract, in any abstract for that matter. However, just to share with you, in reality, not all the authors include all 5. That is a very sad thing to me personally, right? I shall show you one of the example later. Right, abstract. How many words are there should be in an abstract? So minimally, it should be around 150 words, right up to 350 words. But this very much depends on the conference that you are submitting your paper to, or the seminar, or the symposium, as well as journals. But largely, they will dictate that the abstract should not be more than 250 words. Okay, and then keywords. Some journals request most journals request keywords. So this is to ensure that the article is correctly identified in abstracting and indexing services. I believe most of you are very familiar with the social media platform, and you have been using the hashtag for quite some time, right? So what is the purpose of the hashtags? In order for the content of your posting, okay, to be tagged or to be compiled or to be collated or to be curated or to be collected within the same tagging, right? So that when other people search for that particular tag, so your posting on social media platform, that specific social media platform, will also be part of the repository. Okay, so the same thing goes for the keywords. So it's to identify that our paper belongs to which domain, and when people search for papers relating to their their study or their research, if it coincides with your keywords, then your paper will be written as a hit. Okay, and then comes the introduction or the background of the study, explains the problem. This is why we explain about the problem. We explain about the problem in the form of a funnel. We'll deal with that later. Okay, methods, we explain how the data was collected thoroughly. We explain, we need to provide the elaborate explanation. Results describes what was discovered. Discussion discusses the implications of the findings. Acknowledgements ensure those who helped in the research are recognized. These are not the people who were involved in the study or in research, who did not contribute to the research, but however, they provide funding. For example, your agency, your budget agency or funding agency provides you with a budget for undertaking the research. So you need to include them in the acknowledgement. However, the people from the agency do not contribute directly in the preparation of the paper. All right? Or maybe you receive or you collected the data from selected respondents, so you say your thanks to them, you acknowledge them. And appendices. So some journals require for you to provide supplementary data for the expert reader. All right, let's take a look at introduction. So what is introduction? How do we, it's going to be mind-boggling for some when we are asked to write a scientific paper or an article or a paper on a specific focus or direction or point, right? So how do we minimize, we compartmentalize? Normally, when we deal with programming students, okay, I believe all of you are programming students. So when we deal with programming, what do we do with the big information over the big chunk of problem that we need to solve. We define them into small problems, right? So this is the same approach as well. So when we talk about introduction, how long should the introduction be? So that's why I suggest the introduction to be 1.5 to 2 pages. So is it wrong if we cannot make it up to 2 pages? No. No. That's not something that is unacceptable or wrong. No. Do not worry about that. What I'm telling you is just a basic guideline. So if you have managed to explain clearly about the introduction within 1.5 pages length, it will be sufficient. It will be enough. Okay. So contextualize the research study being presented in the relevant literature, claim its novelty, and present main features of the study. So that is what introduction does. Introduction sections work from outside in. Talk about the field, then progressively narrow the scope to talking about only the current investigation. So it is actually in the form of a funnel. Okay, I believe all of you can figure out, can imagine the shape of a funnel, right? So big on top and then smaller at the bottom, a funnel. So you talk about the focus of your, or the topic of your research in the very general setting, okay? Let's say if I want to talk about the difficulty of learning mathematics at the preschool level, right? So in my introduction, I'll be talking about what is occurring around the globe, or at least in Malaysia, okay, with regard to learning mathematics in preschool in Malaysia per se. And then I bring it down to the basic or the real issues regarding the learning of mathematics in preschool in selected areas. I could do that as well, right? So it's a funnel, it's narrowing down. Okay, this hopefully this could help you in coming up and preparing your own paper. Introduction, you provide background and relevant info of your research. Discuss the importance of the topic for the world, society, discipline. Remember the funnel just now. And you can even review items of previous research. You point out limitations, gaps, weaknesses in previous research. Within the introduction, you oppose viewpoints or identify weaknesses. You identify gaps and you raise questions. You describe your research and its aims or achievements or findings and introduce solution to the problem. So you state your main purpose or aim. You announce the present research, as well as indicate research article, RA structure, and announce principal results and findings. So as an example, provide a background. So this is an actual excerpt from a systematic literature review paper, yeah? So discuss the importance of the topic for the world, society, discipline. So based on this, we can see that almost, according to this text, almost a decade ago, Satoshi Nakamoto, the unknown person group behind Bitcoin, described how the blockchain technology, a distributed peer-to-peer link structure, could be used to solve the problem of maintaining the order of transactions and avoid the double spending problem. So a decade ago, it's like providing you with a setting, okay? And then review items of previous research. So what is going on with the previous, or what has been discovered from the previous research regarding the topic at hand. Okay, in blue, I highlighted some of the items raised or points raised. Okay. So when you divide your papers, when you want to write up your papers using this approach, you will see that you can work like a scaffolding approach. You build up bit by bit. Okay. Discuss the important, again, some of the other important points that are shown here. Okay. Point out limitation gaps. Okay, so this is where you highlight the weaknesses or the gaps existed in previous research. So other reviews focus on security issues of the blockchain and its potential to enable trust and decentralization, blah, 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 blah. However, so when you identify the gap, when you raise questions, so evidently the literature lacks a concrete and systematic review of blah, 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 blah. Following 3 questions, how, blah, 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 blah. So this is actually the highlight, where you raise questions indicating that previous research, this is still within the introduction, yeah? The previous research contains gaps, contains loopholes that they have not covered. So this is the purpose of your paper, is to discover or to look into, for example, the topic is on Bitcoin. So to look into Bitcoin in these aspects, or rather to look into blockchain in these aspects. And then second, describe your research and its, third, describe your research and its aims, achievements, state the purpose or aim of the research. So our work, so this is actually a signal to the reader or to the interested party that what you intend to do or what you are going to explain within your paper. Okay. And then indicate research article or the research structure. You normally mention in section 2 of the paper, you provide a brief overview. The method follows in section 3. Section 4 contains the descriptive analysis. Section 5, taxonomy and the relevant discussions on open issues, trends, and further research in section 6. So you provide your reader with a mental frame, okay, detailing or segmenting or compartmentalizing your components or your parts of your paper. All right. Methods. So 0 or half a page to 1 page. So it describes the procedures and experiments taken for obtaining results, findings for a study. So that is what you put in the method. Serves to convince the readers on the validity of the procedures employed. That's why I mentioned earlier that it's very important for you to ascertain that the testing that you are going to conduct is accurate, is proper, is relevant, is related, as well as the analysis, data analysis that you are going to use to analyze your data. So overall, the method must be relevant and must be accurate or correct. So what are the things that you need to include in the method? So you describe data collection procedure. So you describe the samples, recount steps in data collection, justify data collection procedure. You describe the concept and variable in the research. You present overview of design. You explain the methods of measuring variables. You justify methods of measuring variables. The third one is describe data analysis. So you recount data analysis procedure, you justify data analysis procedure, and you preview results. So when you look at all these three supposedly information that you need to have in the method, so you can address this bit by bit correctly, right? So it's not going to be very overwhelming to you, even as a student, to write the proper methods, as long as you follow the guidelines. Okay? So let's take a look at describe data collection procedure. So actually, this is in relation to how did you intend to collect the data? Okay. So for example, in this paper, to address the described samples, to address our primary research question, a systematic literature search was carried out during January 2008 without time frame restrictions, and the results were subsequently updated during April 2018. So you describe the sample. But has it tell you how many papers were involved? No, right? So what can we do? We can either put it in here or we can put it at a later part, still under method, okay, under the method section. Recount steps in data collection. You can share, you can also share, or you can also point out that based on this method or the approach that you adopted, the records retrieved from January to April 2018, yeah, records retrieved are 568. Okay, so 568. Additional articles included through bibliographic trail search and reference list, 37. Records imported into citation manager, 566. Title and abstract screening, 557. Full text articles assessed for eligibility, 292. And in the end, number of articles included, 260. So what happened was that for this systematic, in order to write up this systematic literature review paper, they have conducted a systematic literature search based on the content of articles from January 2018 until April 2018, and it has gone through rigorous evaluation selection, okay, until they have reached the final number of papers that they have looked through, which was 260 papers, right? And then we justify that they justify data collection procedure. The eligibility of the retrieved literature was evaluated independently by the authors based on a set of predefined exclusion and inclusion criteria. So basically, we know that the author explains based on the initial collection of the relevant, so-called relevant materials or reference materials. It has gone through rigorous evaluation until they reach the exact number of 260, which they are going to be assessed thoroughly, okay, based on the direction and the focus of the research. Second, describe the concepts and variables in the research. So present overview of design. So the study analyzes 260 research papers published between 2014 and April 2018. I believe it was 2014, sorry. Okay. And then the focus of their research are to look into these three aspects. 1, 2, and 3. Explain methods of measuring variables. They have conducted the selection and measuring the variables within the 260 papers using specific guides, okay, and then and they put it into a qualitative analysis software, all right? And then justify methods of measuring variables. Most authors classify blockchain. So this is where they justify why did they adopt this? Because this approach or this method has been used successfully by other researchers as well, right? In order to look into the study of they are researching on blockchain technology. So in order to look into blockchain technology, they have somehow emulated, okay, or followed through the approach which has been tried and tested by other researchers in their own papers, right? Okay, then describe data analysis. So recount data analysis procedure. So they said that a year-wise analysis of the selected papers is illustrated in figure 3, blah, 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 blah. All right. So what happens? They recount the data analysis procedure, meaning that they are going to share with you what are the emerging insights that they have discovered, what are the measurements that they use, and whatnot. Okay. And then they justify data analysis procedure. The domain-specific distribution of the 26 research items over time may be seen in figure 4. They provide a figure as well for that. 11 domains of blockchain-based applications have been identified from the analysis, right? So that's why this is how they justify their data analysis procedure, and they preview the results. So based on figure 4 that they are sharing, they showed the results. So under methods. So basically, when we talk about methods, you don't talk about the results just yet, because there will be a specific section for that. But you talk about how did you approach the research? How was the data collected? Who were the samples? Who were the respondents? How many of them? And whatnot? And what are the guidelines for measurement? And what are the analysis that you're going to conduct, as well as the software that you are going to use? And then comes the results section, 2 to 3 pages, depending on how much information that you are going to explain and that you're going to share, rather, not explain. Explain it will be in the discussion section. So results 2 to 3 pages, depending on how much data that you are going to present and share. So the results and subsequent sections are crucial and essentially related to stages of research articles in which authors present their findings and seek to establish their importance. So sometimes you do hear the word results, and sometimes you do hear the word findings. So what is actually the difference between the two? Well, there is a very thin line segregating the two. But normally, when we talk to qualitative and quantitative experts, they normally say that when we talk about results, it's more related to quantitative, meaning that with figures and numbers. Okay, but when we talk about findings, we normally refer to qualitative research in nature. Okay, but sometimes they intertwine. So based on results, this section is the place where new findings and results are not only highlighted, but also interpreted and commented upon by authors. Okay, but let me just share with you or remind you, when we talk about interpretation, do not exceed the interpretation into including discussion. Why? because there will be a proper discussion section after this. Okay, so when you interpret as is based on the results. Okay, so moves here meaning that the way you approach the interpretation, the way you approach the writing. Okay. The results: provide preparatory info, you report the results, you describe the data analysis, and you summarize the results. Oh, I can see that someone is raising a hand. Garibaldi, right?
Yes, it's me, sir.
Yeah, do you have a question for me?
What's the meaning of that hourglass?
The meaning of the
technique?
hourglass. Okay, the meaning of the hourglass is that when it comes to something general in nature, okay, it's very wide, meaning that it is more applicable to it is also applicable to other relevant researchers. So that's why it's more like a big area or a very wide part of the hourglass, similar to the conclusion, because the discussion and the conclusion is applicable as well to the society at large, to the world, to the whole world, or to the across the globe, to big society or different societies. However, when we talk about when we talk about the methods and the results, it's normally relating to what you have conducted within your research only. Okay.
So basically,
yeah.
So
finish your statement, Garibaldi.
what I mean in a simple description of what you said.
Yeah. It's in the shape of the hourglass.
The simple form of your explanation.
Okay. So the introduction as well as the discussion and the conclusion, okay, it applies to a bigger audience, bigger picture, bigger area, bigger domain. All right.
So what I mean is I must write the opening by explaining it in a global way.
Correct. That is one way of doing it. But global here, Garibaldi, global here doesn't mean that you have to include on the ongoings of what is occurring around the world. No. It can be something to do with Indonesia per se, as an example. So Indonesia is a very big enough, right? With hundreds of islands, right? In Indonesia. So
yes,
Indonesia itself is
understandable.
So Indonesia is a very big setting as well. So that can be considered as the introduction, the initial introduction part in your research paper. So you don't really have to compare with other parts of the world. You can use Indonesia, the ongoings of Indonesia in Indonesia relating to your topic.
If those events if those events are occurred overseas of Indonesia for my report, can I use it through overseas perspective?
Yes, you can. It's a matter of choice, actually. As long as you start off your introduction with a general setting, meaning that this is to indicate to your reader that this occurrence is happening. Let's say if you use Indonesia as your initial setting, so this occurrence is happening all across Indonesia. But if you are using the across the globe as an example, so that event in particular is also happening around the world. You can do that as well. So it's a matter of choice. Okay.
Excuse me. What's the meaning of formula N is the amount of something from the report?
Okay.
From the previous slide.
Yeah. N equals 568, right? So N is an example or as indicator of number of people or respondents involved in that particular research.
You mean the subject?
Yeah, the subject. it could be like, for example, in the example that I've shown you just now, n equals 568, right? If you remember from the previous slide.
Yes.
Okay, and then it goes down to n equals 260.
Okay.
Okay, so those are indicator telling the reader that this is the number of papers involved in assessment with regard to that particular research. Okay, so for example, in this particular session, right, I can see that there are 255 participants, including myself. So let's say, since I'm the speaker, so let's exclude myself. So I can say that based on today's webinar session, n equals 250. Now it's increasing, 256. Okay. So n indicates the number of subjects or respondents or samples involved within that particular research. Okay. Hopefully that answers your question, Garibaldi. All right. Okay. So shall I proceed? All right. Okay. Describe the data analysis. We interpret the results, compare results with literature, evaluate the results, explain the causes, and summarize the results. Okay. Provide preparatory info. So in the results, you can provide a short description or short paragraph recounting or explaining to your readers, okay, or the interested parties about what the research is about and how the result came up to be. All right. And then the second part, report the results. So normally what I can see is that based on other various research papers, they can come up with a multitude of graphical representation of the results. These two are just some of the examples. Some people put it in tables in the form of pie chart, bar chart, in the form of mind map, in the form of connection map or connectivity map, in the form of what else? So various presentation or visual presentation of the results. Okay, and then some come up with the use of standard deviation, mean, graphs. Okay. Okay, and then we describe data analysis. We interpret the results. Remember, when interpreting the results, we should not provide more information because we are going to discuss the results later on in the discussion segment or section, right? So we just interpret the results. We compare the results with literature if need be. However, let me just raise another pointer to you. Some people, they oppose to connecting our result with the previous research. Okay, they may have some valid reasons for that. Okay, because the question is, how on earth can our result be related to their research when they have done that in the past? To a certain extent, that can be said to be true. Okay, but under normal circumstances, we normally relate our results to previous results or previous research results because to add or to further support what was done in the past, and it is still true until today. So that is another point of looking at it, another perspective of looking at it. Okay, and then we evaluate the results and explain the causes of the results. Okay, this is just some of the examples. And summarize the results. So from the analysis of the selected literature, a series of insights can be derived concerning the limitation, blah, 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 blah. Okay, as described in section 5, blockchain is nowadays adopted in blah, 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 blah. So this is how you summarize the results under the result section. Then comes the discussion section. Some research articles combine discussion with the result section and conclusion. Some, they have their own separate. However, they still follow the MRAD structure, MRAD structure. Okay, so the result section deals with descriptive facts and discussion section with interpretative points. Okay, your further elaboration, further information regarding the results should be done in the discussion section. So the foundation to write the discussion section is by inserting the results based on the research questions. So you elaborate, you explain clearly in the discussion section by combining the results with the research questions or the objectives of your research, right? So it includes provide background info, a little bit on that, report the results, summarize the result, comment on the result, summarize the research, evaluate the research, make deductions from the research. However, let me just tell you, number 1 to 5, you can do so within a few short paragraphs. You don't have to repeat the whole thing again. Okay, do not repeat the whole thing again. And please provide a slight overview of all this 5 elements, the first 5 elements in few short paragraphs. That will be sufficient. And then comes evaluating the research, indicates limitation, indicates significance, evaluate methodology, right? And then comes make deductions from the research, you make suggestions for future research or draw pedagogic implications. Remember, what I'm sharing with you are the guidelines. Sometimes, depending on the nature of paper, you may not have all of this. I mean, the one at the bottom. Okay. So let's take a look at evaluate the research. So you can indicate limitations. However, like there's a signal word, like any other emerging technology, issues and challenges arise. In this section, we discuss certain limitations of the blockchain technology. So indicating there are some limitations within this particular research. Indicate significance. A blockchain will not provide additional guarantees compared to a regular database, which would most probably be blah, 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 particularly from a performance perspective. So indicate the significance, whether this has impacted the community, the domain or not, okay? And evaluate the methodology. You explain, or you rather provide information about what has been done or what has been discovered, okay? So it says here, however, the combination of all these features makes them ideal for many applications, justifying the intense interest by several industries. And make deductions for the research. As blockchains become more mature, the applications are expected to penetrate more industries, domains, blah, 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 blah. So you make suggestions for future research as well. So since normally what we can do is, based on the limitations that we have raised, we provide future research based on the limitations that we mentioned. That is one way of doing it. And then draw pedagogic implications. Like I mentioned earlier, not all the features or criteria need to be filled. As for this example, from a real or genuine research, systematic literature review research paper, it has not drawn any pedagogic implications. So none. This is only suggestion. Okay. So abstract. Why do I talk about abstract last and not the first? Even though abstract is the first part under any research paper, because an abstract should contain these 5 elements which you can only discover when you have conducted the research, when you have truly understand your research, then only you can make a proper abstract. So how long is the abstract? 250 to 300 words. Most journals require this. Okay, it represents a crystallization of the whole article. So based on the abstract, if all the researchers or all the seasoned researchers provide all these 5 points or 5 parts in the abstract, then everybody can truly understand the gist of the research just by reading the abstract. However, that is not to be said. Why? Because normally authors, researchers, they tend to exclude some parts of the abstract. Some parts, like for example, we have background, purpose, methods, results, and conclusions. They have taken out the results, or they give very vague results, or they have taken out the conclusion. Why? Because they thought that it would pique the interest of the readers to read their whole article. Okay, right. Being the first thing read after the title, it has a significant effect on the reader's decision on whether they continue reading or not. But as a budding researcher, as a budding writer and authors, I sincerely suggest to you, write all the 5 parts and components that are required and necessary in the abstract. Okay, right. So you have the 5 parts: introduction, the focus, the method. Okay, introduction, background of the problem again, include the importance, difficulty of the area, and the impact if successful. The focus, what problem are you trying to solve? What is the scope of your work? And the method, how do you go about solving the problem? Did you use simulation, analytic models, prototype construction, and whatnot? Results and findings, what is the answer? Cheaper, faster, smaller, better, higher. Okay. Preferably put the results in numbers or units. And conclusion, what are the implications of your answer? How did it impacted your respondents? Are your results general, potentially generalizable, or specific to a particular case? So let's take, for example, this one. From another research paper. Okay, this is on e-learning. Okay, let's take a look at the introduction or the background of the study. According to researchers, motivation that initiates and sustains behavior is one of the most significant components of learning in any environment. So this is providing you with a general setting, general overview. Do you see that? Can you relate to that? Accordingly, level of intrinsic motivation triggers and sustains the interest of the open and distance education students when it comes to learning on their own in e-learning environment. So it provides you with the background necessary for you to understand this and understand the rest of the research paper. Let's take a look at the aim, focus, or the purpose. Despite a comprehensive literature regarding the motivation of those learning in traditional learning environments, the number of studies addressing the motivation of open and distance education students in e-learning environments is not sufficient. In this context, this study aims at determining the level of intrinsic motivation of open and distance education students. So that's the purpose. What's the method? Thus, data were collected from 1,639 distance education. So just to point out, this can also be used in n equals 1639 in a bracket. We can use that as well. Okay. Thus, data were collected from 1,639 distance education students in 22 programs through intrinsic motivation in e-learning questionnaire developed and validated to that end. The results or findings. Analysis carried out indicate that the level of intrinsic motivation of open and distance education students is high in e-learning environments, but there is not a statistically significant difference by gender, program structure, instruction type, and academic disciplines. Do you see any conclusion? No. Do you see any figures or numbers or units? No. Just a general statement of results and findings. All right, can you see that? So this is an actual excerpt of abstract from an actual research paper. Okay. You don't see any conclusion, do you? No. Do you see the results and findings in numbers? No. It is a very, not say vague, but very general results and findings being mentioned in the abstract. So that's why I urge and advise, I really promote to you, I sincerely promote to you, when you write papers, research papers, please indicate all these 5 parts in the abstract. Okay, some considerations. In terms of authorship, I mentioned just now about co-authors, gift writers, ghost writers, right? Acknowledgement and plagiarism. If we have the time, we shall look into plagiarism, because this is done by a lot of people across the globe. Okay? Research fraud, falsification, and fabrication. This one, I cannot say much on this, but I know it happens, but we have yet to prove that. Okay? Plagiarism, we can prove that through the number of cases reported. Journal, in order for you to select a journal, you look at the aim and scope of the journal. In fact, to a certain extent, I can share with you that there are some journal identifiers or journal finder. You can put your title, you can put your abstracts, and the journal identifier, it's an online application, it's on a website. Okay, the journal identifier or locator can propose to you what types of journals are suitable to your research paper based on the title and abstract, or the keywords even. Okay, so you need to look into the number of words. Some journal request 6,000 to 8,000 words. Some requested 6 to 8 pages. Some requested more, up to 12 pages. Some requested up to 10,000 words. You shall look at the sections, even though they are not really very particular about the sections, but some journals do. Okay, normally a standard IMRAD section will be sufficient. The referencing style as well, whether they use IEEE reference, they use MLA format or they use APA format. Okay, the article format as well, and article processing fee or charges, because it can goes up to, for example, I can't remember the name of the journal, but it's a Switzerland, it's a journal. Oh yeah, MCPI journal from MCPI publisher. It's a publisher based in Switzerland, and they charge you like 2,000 something Swiss franc. Okay, and it's equivalent to like almost 9,000 ringgit Malaysia. And you have like 2 or 3 people, so each need to fork out like 3,000 ringgit Malaysia to pay for the journal, for the publication of the journal, right? Article processing fee or charge. So find the minimal one that suits your requirement. The one that I talked about just now is a Scopus Index journal. Okay, be ethical in writing your research paper. Okay, be ethical. No copyright infringement, no image manipulation, no data fabrication, no conflicts of interest, no authorship issues and whatnot. Okay, so avoid plagiarism, presenting the data or interpretations of others without crediting them and thereby gaining for yourself the rewards earned by others is theft. And it eliminates the motivation of working scientists to generate new data and new interpretations and sharing of new findings. Okay, so do not plagiarize. Causes of plagiarism, I shall not deal with that. Okay, but these are some form of plagiarism. You copy an entire piece of work by someone else and claiming it as your own original work. That is a direct plagiarism. Someone republishes the work of someone else, but in a different language. You found in Arabic, and then you change it into Bahasa Indonesia or English, and hope not to get caught. Nope, that is very wrong. Okay. Reusing your own work from a past class and passing it off as a new work is also a type of plagiarism. Okay? Auto plagiarism or self plagiarism or recycling plagiarism. Secondary source, use info from secondary sources without citing them. That's wrong as well, plagiarism. Mosaic or scaffolding, copying an entire piece of work by someone else and claiming it as your own original work pun sama jugalah macam tadi. Tapi dia, I mean, there are some parts of it that is yours, some part of it you use your own words. Mosaic scaffolding. Hired or ghost, paying someone else to write an essay or research paper for you. Just to share with you, in Malaysia, I have heard that there are some business opportunities whereby these unethical, unscrupulous people, they provide work, they provide services whereby they write the assignment or they prepare the assignment for you with a certain fee, which is very, very bad. Okay. All right, to summarize, remember IMRAD, write assuredly and correctly, be careful, be ethical, be certain about authorship, be honest, and plagiarism is a serious offense. So be aware about that. And when in doubt, always cite. Thank you and all the best. Thank you very much for your cooperation and for your interest in this session. And thank you for listening.
Thank you.
I'll pass back to Miss Christine.
Thank you, Dr. Azlan. Okay. Oh, any question for anyone? Okay, Garibaldi, you raise hand.
What's the differences between verbatim and scaffolding plagiarism?
Verbatim is actually taken word by word. Okay, exact words. Okay, you don't change a thing, but you don't quote, you don't cite. Okay, mosaic or scaffolding is when you take part of the words and infuse it with part of your own words.
Okay.
Okay, Garibaldi, okay? Enough?
All right.
All right, okay.
Thanks. Thank you.
Okay, very interesting, Dr. Azlan, for your presentation. Hopefully, the presentation from Dr. will make us understand more about how to write a good paper, and then which we will submit this paper on conference or journal.
Yes, yes.
So, the next question, for participant, if you have any question, or I think maybe all participants clearly and have understood all the presentation of you. So, I have one question.
Yeah,
How
sure.
to choose a journal with a high reputation we will use as a reference our research.
I did not get the question. Can you repeat the question?
Okay. How to choose a high journal with a high reputation according with our topic that we will use as a reference?
I see. Okay. Firstly, when we talk about reputable journals, okay, it can be looked at various perspectives, right? Some people will look into reputable journals in terms of the indexing, World of Science, ERA, okay, Scopus journals, okay, Times, and some will look at the quartile, Q1 journals, Q2, Q3, Q4, right? Some of the journals which are indexed under Scopus may not, may not be may not be in any quartile, okay, because it has been recently accepted, but they are indexed under journal. But most journals you can find they come in the form of quartile, Q1, Q3, Q2, Q3, Q4. Q4 being a much lower level, but lower here, do not get me wrong, lower here does not mean bad quartile or bad compilation of journals. No. It's not that. It's just that based on the level or the ranking under Scopus, so it comes at the bottom. However, it comes at number 4. However, based on the progress of the journal under quartile 4, they can improve and become quartile 3 or quartile 2 over a period of time. Okay, so in order for us to look into reputable journals, for us to send our papers, first and foremost, you can check, like I mentioned just now, you can use the journal identifier or journal suggester or journal locator, right, online. Various, you just Google and type journal locator or journal identifier, journal suggester. So it will provide you with quite a number of, three to four influential and reputable ones that could suggest which journal that you can send your papers to. Okay, so when we talk about reputable journals, sometimes they are very thorough. Okay, and sometimes even let's say, for example, based on the journal locator or identifier, it suggests you to go for a Scopus Q1 journal. But maybe at that point of time, the Q1 journal has already a vast collection of unpublished papers, but still under the editor's review. So we may not waste our time to submit there. We may choose a different journal. So if you were to choose the most appropriate one, is based on the focus of the journal, the focus of your papers. Okay, if I'm allowed to share with you an example, let's say, for example, you are doing something on designing and developing a courseware for learning research methodology through ataupun via APA, pedagogical agent, active pedagogical agent, right? So there will be a journal that specifically caters for the designing and developing of courseware with APA, rather than another journal which is also relevant and related and suitable as well, but they talk on instructional technology or digital education. It's more general than the one that you are working on. Am I right, Christine?
Yes. Okay.
So it's a matter of whether do you still want to proceed with a more general but relevant journal, or the one that is directly focused regarding your topic. So the comparison between the focus of the journal as well as the focus of your research paper should be looked into properly. But there is no obstacle, or there is no stopping you from sending to any of the journals of your choice. All right. Hopefully that answers your question, Miss Christine.
Sometimes I'm confused if I choose journal or paper to reference our topic, because many paper or journal have a general topic on this paper.
Yes. If your paper is general in nature, then you go for general topics journal. But if your paper is very focused, for example, Bitcoin or blockchain technology, so there are a few, very little, very few papers, very few journals which are focusing on that. So you need, if you wish to be published in that kind of journal, then you should go for that rather than go for the more general nature journal.
So based on my experience, our paper is rejected because my reference is not related with my research.
I see. Yeah. That is just to share with you. I've been as a reviewer myself but not for any Scopus index journals just yet. But for some of the MySite journals in Malaysia, right? As well as the non-index one, I've been as reviewers for them. So sometimes they also look into the references. Okay. Sometimes authors forget that the references play a part in substantiating or supporting the paper, the research paper. Why? Because you need to find like 5 to at least 5 years back, or 5 to 7 years back, rather than finding something like from the 1990s or from the early 2000s, right? Because technology evolves so fast. So that's why we need to keep abreast with the current advancement, and we need to refer to references which are like 5 years back only. So that is another point why papers are being rejected as well, besides other things.
Yes, okay. Okay.
Oh, I see Miss Ajeng there. I mean, hi, Miss Ajeng.
Yes.
Hello, Dr.
Here is
Azlan.
Sorry to stop short there. Okay, continue, Miss Christine.
Okay. Yes, clearly, Dr. Azlan. Thank you for your explanation.
All right.
Anyone else have any question? Maybe Miss Ajeng?
The thing is with writing papers, yeah. Many see that as a huge obstacle, a very big stumbling block. Okay. However, if you like what I suggested just now, based on the guidelines, if you divide them into smaller parts, okay, into smaller sections, right, and you attend and you address them bit by bit, then you can see that the work is not that difficult. It's not something that it's not impossible. It's possible. Okay, and you can start off by writing 1 or 2 sentences to get into the mood of writing. In fact, I normally handle research methodology classes with my students as well. So I normally ask them, when you think of something, okay, you just write them down, even though it doesn't make proper sense, even though it doesn't make a proper grammar, just write them down, because the idea is more important. All right, the language, the style can be dealt with later, as long as the idea is not lost.
Okay. I see. Okay. So clearly, Dr. Azlan. Yes. Just we have many questions. It's about research. Maybe the student is. Oh, sorry. Oh, no. Anyone have any question? No? Dr. Azlan, can can you share the material for us?
Yeah, definitely. I'll pass it to you through the email later, yeah?
Okay, so thank you.
So can we
Okay.
have a photo? Can we have a photo session?
Yes. Now we can the last session is even the closing for participant and Dr. Azlan. Before end the last session, can you turn on your camera and I will lead to take a picture?
Yeah,